The Federal Reserve is a little bit complicated, but the people who lead this institution have intentionally tried to make it sound 10 times more complicated than it really is. And the reason behind that is strategic. The people who lead the Fed are trying to separate us from its policies. They're trying to make it sound like what they're doing is so complicated that us normal citizens could never understand it. But in reality, the politics of money is not just important, but it is relatively straightforward. The FOMC is a committee of 12 people who decide the most important policies at the Federal Reserve. FOMC stands for Federal Open Market Committee, and it's this group that meets every 6 weeks. And it's most famous for raising or lowering interest rates. You'll always hear the Fed raised interest rates today, the Fed lowered interest rates today. That's referring to the decisions made by this committee called the FOMC, which meets in secret every 6 weeks. In essence, it's a radical and experimental program that the Fed started in 2010. And the goal is to pump as much money into Wall Street as possible at the very moment when the Fed is keeping interest rates at zero, meaning that there's no incentive to save all this money that the Fed is printing. So to understand how QE works, it's important to understand how the Fed creates money. The Fed is the only institution on earth that can make new dollars appear out of thin air, but it can't just do that by making money appear in your checking account or at a local bank. The Fed makes money appear inside the bank vaults of 24 select institutions called primary dealers. And here's how it works. A financial trader at the New York Federal Reserve Bank will call up one of the primary dealers, let's say JP Morgan Chase, and the Fed trader will say, hey, I want to buy $80 billion in treasury bonds from you. So the banker says, sure, sells those bonds to the Fed, and then the Fed trader says, hey, look in your reserve account. And voila, the Fed trader can automatically make $80 billion appear out of nowhere in that reserve account. And quantitative easing is just the repeated series of transactions like this through which the Fed has made trillions of dollars appear inside the bank accounts on Wall Street. An asset bubble is a really dangerous thing. It's what happens when the price of any asset gets so high that it's not supported by the fundamental real value of that asset anymore, which is when you see a market crash. The reason this is so important now is that the Fed has been taking extraordinary measures to boost economic growth by printing more money than ever and having easy money policies that are more severe than any we've seen before. And this is driving up the price of assets across the board, the stock market, commercial-backed mortgage bonds, corporate junk debt, leveraged loans. Everywhere you look now, you see elevated asset prices. The zero bound is a term that economists use to describe the limits of the Federal Reserve's power. And what they're referring to in the zero bound is interest rates. The primary way that the Fed intervenes in the economy is by either raising or lowering the cost of a loan in interest rates. Over the last 60 years or so, interest rates have hovered around 3-4%. That's been kind of the normal cost of money. But if the Fed really wants to intervene dramatically and take emergency measures, it can push interest rates all the way to zero. In other words, the cost of an overnight loan is nothing. Money is free in a serious way.